What is the creepiest thing that's happened to you personally that made you question reality? I don't know if this is the right place to post this, but I need to get it out somewhere because it's been eating at me for weeks now, and nobody in my life believes me. My therapist thinks I'm having a breakdown. My boyfriend thinks I need to take a break from the internet. My best friend stopped returning my calls after I showed her the photos. But I know what I've seen. I know what's happening to me is real. Before the video starts, please like and subscribe. This is a new channel and it would mean the world to me. It started 3 months ago, on a completely ordinary Tuesday morning in March. I was grabbing coffee at my usual spot, this little cafe called the Roasted Bean, 2 blocks from my apartment in downtown Portland. Nothing fancy, just my routine Tuesday morning stop before heading to the graphic design studio where I work. I'd been going there for 2 years, knew all the baristas by name, had my order memorized in their system. It was my safe place, you know? My little pocket of normalcy before facing whatever chaos the workday would bring. As I waited for my usual oat milk latte, I decided to check my phone. That's when I felt it. That prickling sensation on the back of your neck when you know someone is watching you. I looked up and saw him for the first time. He was sitting in the corner booth, the one by the window that nobody ever sits in because the morning sun hits it directly and makes it unbearably bright. But he was just sitting there, completely unbothered by the glare, staring directly at me with this blank expression. Not threatening exactly, just empty, like he was looking through me rather than at me. His face was unremarkable, the kind you'd forget immediately in a crowd, but his eyes were different. They were gray, almost colorless, and they didn't blink. He was wearing a gray suit. Not charcoal, not slate, but that specific shade of gray that seems to exist between colors like fog or television static. The suit looked expensive but outdated, like something from the 1960s. Everything about him seemed slightly out of focus, like a photograph taken with a dirty lens. I got my coffee and left quickly, feeling uneasy but brushing it off. City life, you know. Weird people everywhere. Portland has its share of characters. I figured he was just some eccentric businessman or maybe someone with social difficulties who didn't realize staring was inappropriate. I didn't think about him again until the next Tuesday. Same cafe, same time. 8:47 a.m. because I'm obsessively punctual. I walked in and my stomach dropped. He was there again. Same gray suit. Same corner booth. Same expressionless stare that locked onto me the moment I pushed through the door. This time, I noticed he didn't have a drink. No coffee, no pastry, nothing. Just sitting there, hands folded on the table, watching. My heart started racing. I ordered my coffee, deliberately not looking in his direction, but I could feel his gaze on me the entire time. When the barista called my name, my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the cup. I left without adding my usual sugar, practically running back to my apartment. I told myself it was coincidence. Maybe he worked nearby. Maybe Tuesdays were his coffee day too. Portland's not that big. You see the same faces sometimes. It didn't mean anything. But I couldn't shake the image of him sitting there, perfectly still, not drinking, not reading, not looking at his phone. Just watching me. That Friday I needed groceries. I'd been putting it off all week, but my fridge was empty except for condiments and a suspicious-looking container of leftover pad thai. I drove to the New Seasons 3 miles from my apartment, deliberately choosing a different store than my usual, though I didn't consciously acknowledge why at the time. I was in the produce section, debating between organic and regular avocados, when I saw him again. He was standing at the end of the aisle about 30 feet away, next to the display of pre-cut fruit. Not shopping, not pushing a cart, not even pretending to look at the produce. Just standing there in that same gray suit, staring directly at me with those colorless eyes. The avocado fell from my hand. I watched it roll across the floor, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Because this wasn't coincidence anymore. This was something else. He didn't move, didn't blink. Just stood there like a statue, like he'd been placed there specifically for me to find. I abandoned my cart, just left it right there in the middle of the aisle, and walked quickly toward the exit. Not running because some part of my brain insisted that running would make it real, would acknowledge that something was terribly wrong. As I passed the end of the aisle, I forced myself to look. He was gone. The space where he'd been standing was empty. I asked a stock clerk if he'd seen a man in a gray suit. He looked at me strangely and said he'd been stalking that aisle for the past 20 minutes and hadn't seen anyone matching that description. That night I didn't sleep. I kept going over it in my mind, trying to rationalize it. Maybe he lived in my neighborhood. Maybe he shopped at that store. Maybe I was just noticing him now because of the weird encounter at the cafe. Some trick of pattern recognition, confirmation bias, whatever you want to call it. But I knew better. Deep down I knew. The sightings became more frequent after that. I saw him at the gym on Wednesday morning, standing in the corner of the weight room, watching me through the mirror as I did squats. When I turned around to confront him, he was gone. I saw him outside my dentist's office on Thursday afternoon, standing across the street under an awning, motionless while rain poured down around him. I watched him from the waiting room window for 10 minutes straight. He never moved, never looked away. When I went down to street level after my appointment, he'd vanished. I saw him at the movie theater on Saturday night. My boyfriend Jake and I went to see some Marvel movie. I don't even remember which one now. And during the previews I saw him sitting 3 rows behind us, alone, staring at the back of my head. I told Jake I felt sick and we left. Jake was annoyed, said I'd been acting strange all week. We had our first real fight in the parking lot. He accused me of making excuses because I didn't want to spend time with him. Couldn't explain. How could I? Sunday morning I saw him at the farmer's market, standing behind a vendor's tent, just his face visible between hanging bunches of lavender, those gray eyes fixed on me. I blinked and he was gone. I started documenting everything. I created a spreadsheet with dates, times, locations. I tried to find a pattern, some logic to his appearances. There was none. He showed up at different times of day, different days of the week, in places I went regularly and places I'd never been before. The only constant was that he was always watching me. I never saw him arrive or leave. He would just be there, and then not be there. By the 3rd week I was barely sleeping. I started taking different routes to work, shopping at different stores, changing my entire routine. It didn't matter. He found me anyway. I saw him at a restaurant I'd never been to, 40 minutes outside the city. Jake and I went there for our anniversary dinner. The man in the gray suit was sitting at the bar, facing away from the bartender, staring directly at our table. Jake didn't notice him. When I pointed him out, Jake looked confused. Where? I don't see anyone. But he was right there, clear as day. That was the night I realized that maybe others couldn't see him. Or they could see someone, just not the same person I was seeing. That thought terrified me more than anything else. I started taking photos. Obsessively. Every time I saw him I'd snap a picture. Most of them were blurry. My hands shook too much, but I got a few clear shots. When I showed them to people, they squinted at the screen and said things like, "That's just some guy," or "I don't see anything unusual," or worst of all, "Are you feeling okay?" But I could see him. In every photo he was crystal clear. Always in that gray suit. Always facing the camera. Always with that expression that wasn't quite an expression at all. One night, I went through my phone's camera roll, looking at photos from before I'd started seeing him. Random pictures, selfies, backgrounds of group shots with friends from the past few months. My blood ran cold. He was in 7 of them. In the background. Always distant but unmistakable in that gray suit. Always facing the camera. In a photo from January, he was standing behind a food truck at a festival I'd attended. In a February picture from my friend's birthday party, he was visible through a window in the background, standing on the street outside. In a selfie I'd taken at the park in December, he was standing between trees about 50 yards away, just barely visible but definitely there. He'd been watching me for months before I ever noticed him at the cafe. I showed the photos to my best friend Melissa. She looked at them carefully, zooming in, studying each one. Then she looked at me with this expression of pity and concern that made me want to scream. "Sarah, I'm worried about you," she said softly. "I think maybe you should talk to someone. A professional. You don't see him." My voice came out as a whisper. I see people in the background, but nothing unusual, nothing concerning. Definitely not the same person in all of them like you're saying. She held my hand. Have you been under a lot of stress? How are things with Jake? I pulled my hand away. She thought I was crazy. They all did. I made an appointment with a therapist. Dr. Chen listened patiently while I explained everything, nodding occasionally, taking notes. At the end of the session, she asked if I'd been experiencing any other symptoms. Paranoia, hearing voices, feelings of persecution. She mentioned terms like erotomania and delusional disorder. She prescribed something to help me sleep and suggested we continue therapy twice a week. I took the prescription but never filled it. I wasn't crazy. This was real. Jake moved out last week. He said he couldn't handle my episode anymore, that I needed to get help before we could continue our relationship. He said it gently, with tears in his eyes, which somehow made it worse. He packed his things while I sat on the couch, numb. Part of me wanted to beg him to stay, to believe me. But I knew he never would. After Jake left, I decided to confront the man in the gray suit. I was done being afraid. Done running. I needed answers. I saw him 3 days ago at Powell's Books, the massive indie bookstore downtown. I'd gone there seeking comfort, losing myself in the stacks like I used to when I was younger. I was in the fiction section when I felt that familiar prickling sensation. I looked up, and there he was, standing at the end of the aisle. Something in me snapped. I marched right up to him, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Why are you following me? My voice was loud enough that other customers turned to look. He didn't react. Didn't blink. Just kept staring with that empty expression. I'm talking to you. I was shouting now. Answer me. Who are you? What do you want? Nothing. No response. No acknowledgement that I'd spoken. Then someone touched my shoulder. I spun around to find a concerned-looking employee. Ma'am, is everything all right? This man, I pointed at the gray suit. He's been following me for months. He won't leave me alone. The employee looked where I was pointing, then back at me with confusion. What man? Him. Right there. But even as I pointed, I realized how I must look. Wild-eyed, sleep-deprived, shouting at nothing. Ma'am, you're alone in this aisle. There's no one there. The employee's voice was gentle but firm. Maybe you should sit down. Can I call someone for you? Update 2 hours later. Called the number. I don't know what I was expecting. Part of me thought it wouldn't even ring, that it would be disconnected or lead to some random person who'd tell me I had the wrong number. But it rang. 3 times. Then someone picked up. Silence. I could hear breathing on the other end. Slow, steady, rhythmic. Almost mechanical, like the respirator in a hospital. Hello. My voice cracked. Who is this? More silence. More breathing. I know you can hear me. I know this is you. The man in the gray suit. Just tell me what you want. Please. The breathing stopped. For a moment there was absolute silence, so complete it felt like the absence of sound itself, like being underwater. Then, in that same flat, emotionless voice from the bookstore. Stop looking for me. I'm not looking for you. I was crying now, I realized. You're the one following me. You've been following me for months. I just want it to stop. Stop looking for me, he repeated. Exactly the same inflection, like a recording playing. Stop seeing me. How? How do I stop seeing you when you're everywhere? Silence again. Then, you can't. The line went dead. I stood there holding my phone, tears streaming down my face, the dial tone buzzing in my ear. I don't know how long I stood there. Eventually, my legs gave out and I slid down the wall to sit on the floor. That's when I looked at my window. He's standing across the street under the lamppost. In the gray suit. Staring up at my apartment window. Me. I'm looking at him right now. He's completely still, like a photograph, like he's not even breathing. The streetlight above him is flickering, casting strange shadows across his face. But his eyes are steady. gray and unblinking and fixed on me. I closed my curtains. My hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries. I don't know if closing curtains does anything, if it matters, if he needs to see me or if he can just sense me somehow. But I couldn't look at him anymore. I sat on my floor with my back against the wall, trying to slow my breathing, trying to think rationally. This couldn't be happening. This isn't how reality works. People don't just appear and disappear. They don't follow you for months without explanation. They don't leave business cards in locked apartments. After about an hour, I got brave enough to peek through the curtains again. He's gone. The street is empty. Just parked cars and streetlights and the usual late-night silence of my neighborhood. But then my doorbell rang. I jumped so hard I hit my head on the windowsill. My doorbell rang again. Insistent. I crept to my door and looked through the peephole, my heart hammering. Nobody there. I opened the door. I know, stupid, but I had to know. The hallway was empty. But there on my doormat was another card. Same white cardstock. Same gray ink. This one had a message. You were always supposed to see me. We've been waiting. I grabbed it and slammed the door, locked it, threw the deadbolt, put the chain on. I'm sitting on my couch now, both cards on the coffee table in front of me, staring at them like they might explain themselves if I look long enough. We've been waiting. There are more of them. I don't understand what that means. I don't understand any of this. Waiting for what? Why me? What did I do? What am I supposed to do now? I looked back at the spot where he'd been standing. Me. No, I said quietly. No, I'm fine. I'm sorry. I walked away quickly, my face burning with humiliation and rage and terror all mixed together. But as I rounded the corner toward the exit, I heard something behind me. A step. Turned. He was following me. Walking now, not just standing. His movements were strange, too smooth, like he was gliding rather than walking. His eyes never left mine. You're not supposed to see me. His voice was flat, completely emotionless, like a text-to-speech program. It didn't sound human. Froze. What? He stopped walking. We were standing in the middle of the history section, surrounded by books about wars and revolutions and the rise and fall of empires. You're not supposed to see me, he repeated in that same mechanical tone. Why are you doing this? What do you want from me? But he didn't answer. He turned and walked toward the back of the store, toward the rare books room. I followed him, my legs moving almost against my will. He turned a corner and I ran to catch up, but when I got there he was gone. Completely vanished. I checked every aisle in that section. Nothing. I asked the staff if they'd seen a man in a gray suit. They said I'd been standing alone in the history section for the past 5 minutes, muttering to myself. One of them asked again if I needed them to call someone. Left. Walked all the way home even though it was starting to rain, because I couldn't face getting on the bus, couldn't face being in an enclosed space with other people who couldn't see what I could see. When I got home, I locked every door, checked every window, and sat on my couch in the dark, shivering and soaking wet. But I wasn't alone. I could feel him. Somewhere. Watching. I haven't seen him since that day. It's been 9 days now. 9 days of silence, of checking over my shoulder, of jumping at shadows. Part of me is relieved. But a bigger part of me is terrified because I don't know what his absence means. Is it over? Or is this just a new phase of whatever nightmare I'm trapped in? Last night I had a dream. I was lying in bed, unable to move, caught in that paralysis that sometimes happens between sleeping and waking. My bedroom door opened slowly. He walked in, that gray suit somehow even grayer in the darkness of my room. He stood at the foot of my bed, looking down at me with those colorless eyes. Update Day 2. I didn't sleep last night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him standing at the foot of my bed. I kept all the lights on, checked the locks every hour. My neighbors probably think I'm insane if they heard me pacing back and forth all night. This morning I decided to do some research. I know that sounds crazy given everything that's happened, but I needed to feel like I was doing something, taking some action instead of just waiting for him to appear again. I spent hours going through Reddit, through paranormal forums, conspiracy websites, anywhere people share strange experiences. I searched for gray suit man, followed by stranger, recurring stranger, man who disappears. Found hundreds of stories. Thousands maybe. Here's what terrified me. I found similar stories. Not exact matches, but close enough to make my blood run cold. A woman in Seattle who kept seeing the same man in a brown coat. He appeared in her photos going back years. When she finally confronted him, he said, "You're not supposed to notice us." A guy in Austin who was followed by a woman in a vintage red dress. She appeared at random times, always watching, never speaking. When he tried to photograph her directly, his camera would malfunction. The photos he managed to get showed nothing but static. A teenager in Maine who saw the same elderly man at different locations for 6 months. The man aged in reverse, started looking elderly, got younger with each sighting, until he looked middle-aged. Then he disappeared entirely. The teenager found a note in his locker. "You weren't ready yet." There were dozens more. Different cities, different countries, different descriptions. But always the same elements. A recurring person who shouldn't be there, who appears and disappears impossibly, who others can't see or don't notice, who sometimes speaks in cryptic warnings. Most of the stories ended abruptly. The original posters would update once or twice, then go silent. Their accounts would be deleted or abandoned. I tried to find follow-ups to see what happened to these people, but there was nothing. Just silence. I'm scared I'm going to be one of those abandoned accounts. One of those stories that just stops mid-sentence, leaving everyone to wonder what happened. This afternoon I went back to the roasted bean. I don't know why. Maybe because that's where it all started, where I first saw him. Maybe I thought I could find answers there, or at least understand the beginning of whatever this is. The cafe was quiet, just a few people working on laptops. I ordered my usual coffee, oat milk latte, and sat at a table near the window. Not the corner booth. I couldn't sit there. I was scrolling through my phone, looking at the photos of him again, when the barista came over. It was Emma, one of the regulars who's worked there since I started coming. "Hey Sarah," she said hesitantly. "Can I ask you something?" My stomach tightened. "Sure. Have you been okay? Some of the other customers have mentioned that you've been acting strange lately. And last week you ran out so fast you left your credit card. I'd forgotten about that. I'm fine. Just stressed." She sat down across from me, lowering her voice. "Look, I don't want to pry, but has someone been bothering you? That guy you were asking about." I looked up sharply. "What guy?" "A few weeks ago, you asked if we'd seen a man in a gray suit. You seemed really upset about it." He paused. "The thing is, I've seen him. He comes in sometimes. Always sits in that corner booth, always orders nothing. Just sits there for exactly 20 minutes and then leaves. He's been doing it for months." My heart stopped. "You've seen him?" "Yeah. He's weird but harmless," I thought. "Never causes trouble." But she bit her lip. "I mentioned him to my manager, and she said she's never seen anyone sitting in that booth. Said I must be mistaken. But I know what I saw, Sarah. He was real." "Was?" I grabbed her hand without thinking. Past tense. "When did you last see him?" "About a week ago. Haven't seen him since." She looked uncomfortable. "But here's the weird part. I tried to check our security footage to show my manager I wasn't crazy. We keep footage for 30 days. I went back through every day I remembered seeing him. And the footage shows the booth empty. Every time. Even on days when I specifically remember him being there, serving someone else at a nearby table and seeing him in my peripheral vision. The camera shows nothing." We sat in silence for a moment. Then she said quietly, "I think he wanted me to see him. And then he wanted me to stop. I don't see him anymore, Sarah. Not even when I try. It's like he's been erased from my perception." "Why?" I whispered. "Why would he do that?" "I don't know. But I think." She looked around nervously, then leaned closer. "I think you should stop asking questions. Stop trying to see him. Maybe if you stop noticing, he'll leave you alone too. Before I could respond, she stood up quickly. I have to get back to work. Just be careful, okay? I sat there for another hour, letting my coffee go cold, thinking about what she'd said. Could I just choose to stop seeing him? Is that how this works? But even as I thought it, I knew it was too late for that. Whatever door I'd opened by noticing him, by acknowledging his presence, couldn't be closed now. He'd made contact. He'd left cards in my apartment. He'd said I couldn't stop seeing him. When I got home, I found another card slipped under my door. This one said, "Tonight, 11:47 p.m. The corner where you first saw me. The roasted bean closes at 10 p.m. Update 11:02 p.m. I'm going. I know it's stupid. I know every horror movie, every true crime podcast, every ounce of common sense says don't go to a mysterious meeting place at night with a stalker who appears and disappears and breaks into your apartment. But I have to know. I can't live like this anymore. Paranoid, isolated, losing everyone I care about, questioning my own sanity. If he wants something from me, if there's something I'm supposed to do or understand, I need to know what it is." "You're not supposed to see me," he said again. I tried to speak, to scream, but nothing came out. He leaned forward, his face coming closer to mine, close enough that I should have felt his breath but felt nothing, just cold, empty air. "They're coming for you now," he whispered. "Because you saw me. Because you broke the rules." Then I woke up, gasping, tangled in my sheets, my heart racing. It was 3:33 a.m. I've started waking up at exactly 3:33 a.m. every night this week. I grabbed my phone for comfort, for the light, for connection to something real. That's when I saw it. There was a business card on my nightstand. Plain white, thick cardstock, expensive. No name, no company name, no logo. Just a phone number printed in gray ink. The same gray as his suit. I stared at it for a long time, my hand shaking as I picked it up. It was real. Solid. I could feel the texture of the paper. The slight embossing of the numbers. I live alone. All my doors were locked. My windows were closed. I checked everything before going to bed like I do every night now. But the card was there. I'm looking at it right now as I type this. The number is 503-555-0147. I've memorized it. I can't stop looking at it. Part of me wants to throw it away, burn it, pretend I never saw it. But another part of me, the part that can't sleep anymore, the part that lost my boyfriend and my best friend and possibly my sanity, wants to call the number. I need to know what this is. Who he is. Me. What it means that I can see him when nobody else can. Has anyone else experienced anything like this? Please tell me I'm not losing my mind. Please tell me someone else has seen him or someone like him. Please tell me I'm not alone in this.